Hello and welcome to our Tabletop monthly video. Today we're going to be working on a Blood Angel from Games Workshop. I will be painting some red armor since, this month I've been doing Attack Marine for the display guide. We can show you how to do a simpler red that takes a bit less thought and work, but looks pretty good for the tabletop. So we're going to be starting. I'm going to be using GW paints for the armor because, I'm painting a Blood Angel, so I might as well use a GW paint because I assume most of you who are painting Marines will be using paints like this to keep the guide as easy to follow as possible. I'm going to be starting with Corn Red. This guy is almost exclusively red. It's like red and black. That's it. There are no other colors except silver and green in the eyes, but everything else is red and black. So yeah, it's gonna be fairly quick, which is what I like. And I also like the fact that I don't have to get bogged down by unneeded details in painting this thing, but I can just show you the armor. Of course the other details too, but the armor more importantly. So we're gonna be doing things in a 3-color scheme kinda effect. I have my Corn Red on the palette. I'm gonna be adding some black to it. I have Vallejo model color. You can use any black you want, although Vallejo model color is really good as a black, so if you can get it, do it, because it's really good. It's my favorite black to use, especially for mixing. So we have some of it. We're gonna be mixing ourselves a darker red. If you have a darker red than Corn Red, you can use that. I would rather suggest you not to spend money on buying many shades of one color, but especially the darker shades are definitely not needed. You can just make them darker yourself by adding black or any other color. So we have this darker red. You can see how much darker than Corn Red is. This will be our base coat. So I'm gonna be going around the whole model, painting this color in on all of the details that should be red, which in this case are plenty. I'm also gonna be trying to be neat and avoid any recess, if I can, so that I already have a nice, neat black line there. If I do make the mistake, it's fine. I can always go back and repaint the black line myself, but I would rather avoid it, so I try to be neat. This is up to you. You can, just paint the model and then eventually maybe give it a wash. Although it will look worse that way, because you're gonna have to rebase coat the model if you wash it, pretty much. Because after you do wash a model, the color of the wash has modified all of the colors on which you have applied it. So, yes, you might want the recesses to be darker, but you also end up with a darker base coat on areas like the one I'm painting now, where you wouldn't necessarily want to have a shadow color there. And because of that, you have to rebase coat the model pretty much, avoiding the recesses, so you might as well just avoid them in the first place and be done, you know what I mean? So, yes, we're gonna be starting with this color here. Very, very dark red. It's gonna be a sexy Blood Angel. I'm gonna be base coating everything, and I will be back in a minute, okay? See you later. Okay, we're good with the base coat. Now, before we work on the highlights, I want to take a little bit of a detour, get myself a blue. You can use Guilliman blue, sorry, not Guilliman blue, you can use Mech Craggy blue, any blue you want. I'm using Vallejo because it's the one I have. And we're gonna mix ourselves a very, 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 very dark blue. Basically, black, with a bit of blue in it. And we're gonna be using this color with a bit more thickness to it. We're going to be using this color to base coat the other elements, which is the shoulder pads and the weapon stock and the eagle on the chest. The reason why I'm base coating now is because if I make any mistake, I can easily clean it up, because for now all I have used were 2 colors. I don't have to be worried about ruining some careful blends, some highlights, some things. Like I just worked on the base coats, and because of this I have a very carefree mentality where nothing really matters when it comes to mistakes, and I can just have fun. So we're gonna be base coating this. I like using a very, very dark blue when painting black on something that is red, because that way it allows me to have a bit of a contrast between the blue and the red happening on the model. Also, the various joints should be this color, as well as the belt. Again, I don't mind making mistakes if I do, because I can always clean them up. This is the best stage to do this kind of work. Okay. That should be silver. Just gonna clean up the base coat to make sure that we have good coverage. So after one coat has dried, we can paint the next. Okay. Now we can clean up any mistake we have done. For example, I missed the base coat of the red here. So we're gonna do it. Okay. Okay, let's work on highlighting. I'm gonna be using the pure corn red this time. And I'm gonna be basically painting across almost entirely the armor, leaving this darker coat in the more recessed parts of the model. For example, here the leg is bending, so I can keep the bended part of the leg in the darker color that we had, and instead paint the more non-bended part with this red. The foot here is completely facing the sky, so I can paint it almost entirely with the color. The same goes here. We can have a bit of a light going like this. Just following the model, you know. If I look at the model from the front, where would the light fall if I try to imagine it? And that's where I paint the light. So in this case, almost anywhere except the most recessed part of the model. Basically, our first base coat acted as a wash. It did what a wash does. but it did it better because it was cleaner, didn't have any stains, was something intentionally painted and not randomly painted, and it looks so much better than a wash. That's why, even though this guide is directed to beginner painters and people looking for tips in getting their stuff done quickly, I still use techniques and a methodology that is advanced. Like, I don't use a wash because you can watch millions of people on YouTube use washes on their models or contrast paints. But I want you to learn how to paint well. So I am teaching you techniques and showing you techniques that can be used for tabletop very, very easily without any effort or knowledge or skill, just simply a brush and a couple of paints. But these techniques, when used over time, will be the keys to unlocking very high quality painters. This is how I painted tabletop back in the days when I did it. I did it with the intention of using techniques that would train me and not just get me a result. At the same time, you guys are paying to watch this video, and I would rather not give you the same content that a YouTube channel can give you. You know what I mean? I want you to have something special that only you and I can have. So that's why I paint these models like this. You could have used an airbrush to base coat the base. For example, I could have base coated the model with an airbrush instead of a brush. But you know, when you do it with a brush, you're practicing base coating, which is something that we use all the time in mini painting. So, you know, yeah, it's good to skip base coating when you are painting an army, but at the same time, if you're new and you want to get good, you should practice it. Again, just working up all of the various colors. I'm placing these corn red in all of the areas where I feel like there shouldn't be a strong shadow. You're gonna have to reinforce the colors because it's probably not gonna cover entirely in one coat as your base coat. By the way, if you're curious about what consistency I use for my base coating, something like this. This is similar to a layer. I thin it a little bit to make it flow off of the brush. I clean the brush on a paper towel, and I'm ready to go. I place the paint and then I extend it after placing it. Doing so, I get no brush strokes, and the model looks clean. Okay, we are pretty good. Now all we have to do is reinforce the highlights, because one thing that is absolutely important is whenever you paint an highlight, make sure it covers well. But I hear you ask, how do I blend if I want the highlights to cover well? Well, the easy way would be to, do one coat like I did with a bit of a thin paint so that it doesn't cover fully, and then thinning the paint again a bit more, like a layer consistency, like this. You can see it here, like this, and use the paint to reinforce the highlight, going from the start of the highlight towards the point where the highlight is strongest, like this. You see, I have a shadow here and I have the highlight here. I go towards the light. I do it and I leave it and I let it be. I don't touch it again. If I do, the paint will come off and the model will look awful. Paint it and let it be, okay? If it dries and you still don't like how the highlight is covering, do another one. Again, keep the paint thin, just gently move it around, like this. It's not rocket science. The consistency, you can test it on your thumbnail, is something like this. Again, something like, you can see the color, but it's a bit transparent, a layer consistency, the same consistency that GW uses all the time in their videos. And all we have to do is just get the color in there, moving it towards the light. Doing this will make our highlight cover more. Sorry, that was my PC. It was very loud too, I think. Will make the highlight cover more, as well as give ourselves a blend. So that's what we like. So like this, very simply, very gently. And I'm gonna keep going until I am done doing this, and then we're gonna keep highlighting. Okay, next up we have Mephiston Red. This is gonna be our last highlight before the edge highlights. Gonna be slapping this color inside of the area of the previous highlights. So we have Mephiston Red, which is a more vibrant, slightly brighter red than the corn red we had. And we're just gonna paint this inside of our highlights, making sure that it covers. Again, I'm doing the step of the blending that I showed you earlier as a separate thing as I place this. So I place the colors, I let them dry, and then I come back to them and I quickly reinforce them and get also a bit more of a blend. You can take this in as many steps as you feel it's necessary for you to be comfortable with this, though. I am trying to speed paint to an extent. I don't want you to have, like, this is a tabletop guide. It needs to be short, about an hour long for the whole paint job. So I'm trying my best to be as fast as I can for you guys. But I think you get the gist of it, right? It's about placing the colors properly, having a dark enough base so it can look like a shadow, and working up the colors softly. So rather than go from the dark corn red into the straight up Mephiston red, I am moving through the normal corn red, the non-mixed one, to create more of a gradient, which looks more pleasing to the eye. So the contrast has to happen in the composition, not in the single colors, which is a mistake that many painters do. They assume that contrast has to be in everything they do, and everything looks super fake. It's about softness as well. You can see that our guy is looking red now. Okay, just working with the blending. I have a bit of a thinner paint now, and I'm trying to get this color to be reinforced as well as blended in. So as I do my second layer to get coverage, I also get blending at the same time, directing the paint towards the highlight, not away from it. Okay. Just a few more spots to place this light on, and we're good. Okay, so now we got Agilite. The best way to Agilite is to use a very bright orangish color, orange-red color, which I do not have. I don't have... I think Wild Rider would be the color from the Games Workshop. So I'm going to be using Chimera Cold Yellow and mixing it into the Mephisto Red. Basically, you know, as you add red to yellow, you get orange, right? So if I add a bit of a very bright yellow to the red, I get a bright orange, right? That makes sense to me. So we have our yellow, we have our red, and bam, we got a bright orange. And I'm gonna be using this color to Agilite everything. So it will be a bit of a painstaking journey, but you know, it's necessary in order to get a nice finish on our model. Agiliting is the step that people tend to skip the most when it comes to painting Marines, because it is so annoying, and I understand it. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's fine. Depends how many of them you have to paint and how nice you want them to look. But you know, for the sake of the guide, I am gonna be doing it. So all edges, I'm gonna trace a nice thin line on them. Make them pop. Like this. We're just gonna keep going. I'm gonna be using the side of the brush whenever I have the chance. When I don't, I'm just gonna be painting the line myself. Okay, if you feel like you made any mistake, or maybe some of the lines are too thick or anything like that, you can always go back to the original color on the area before the edge light and clean up things by painting the color back, avoiding the edge, of course. So you can make the edge thinner that way, and looks better. So yeah, that's you can do that if you want. I feel like this area here should be a bit more colored, so I'm just gonna painting some red there. Okay. Okay. So we are pretty good with our armor, I would say. Again, for tabletop purposes, we are. All we have to do now is work on the eyes, the metallics, and the blacks. There's not much left to do, so let's just do it. I'm gonna be adding some white to our original mix, our original black mix. We did black plus blue, if you remember. I'm just gonna be adding a touch of white to it. More blue, a bit more black. I want this to be like a grey blue, okay? Something like this. And we are going to be picking the top of our shoulder pads like this. Very simple. And we can also, after cleaning the brush, loading the brush and cleaning it on a paper towel, from the bottom, like you see how clean the brush is, from the bottom of the eagle thing, just kind of move the brush around. Doing this will pick out all of the edges for us without having us actually painting them. It's a very neat trick, gives you good definition without any work. We can also pick out the various joints on the armor, the edge light here on the belt, the top of the knee. We can edge light our gun. I'm not gonna bother with the back for the sake of the guide. Like, I should be doing it, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. I want to show you guys the effect. I don't want to waste your time. So let's just get the model done instead. I think it's a better idea. So, with our two colors, we can just, again, have an in-between color. And we can kind of paint it in on the, again, layer it on the sides of our highlights to blend them a bit more together. Like so. Last thing remaining is the metallics. Those are pretty simple. I'm just gonna be getting myself a metallic paint if I can find it, and use it for painting the metals on our model. Give me the time to find it. Okay, found the silver. I'm using black metal from scale 75. You can use whichever silver you prefer. It doesn't really matter too much. And I'm just gonna base coat quickly all of the silvery details. Man, it's been a while since I used the metallic paints. Holy cow. Just quickly painting the silver. Okay. So with that done, we have two more things to do. One of them is painting the eyes, which I'm gonna base coat in ivory from model color. I don't suggest you use white from Games Workshop to do this step, because that paint is not very good for base coating or for painting in general. I'm using white from Games Workshop, sorry, from Vallejo. While the white dries, I'm gonna be doing something a bit weird. I want the edge lights to be a bit more red, because they are a bit too orange and fake looking. So I'm just gonna be glazing Mephiston red on top of the edge lights to kind of make them a bit more reddish. It's a glaze, so it barely covers, but it's enough so to make the edges more reddish. This step wouldn't be necessary if you had used like a Wild Rider like GW uses, or a bit more of a reddish tone. But you know, I think it's interesting to show you what happens if you make a mistake. Like, if your edge lights are too bright, what do? Well, you just glaze them down. Like I'm doing here. Just a quick glaze using the previous layer. Very, very thin. And just applying it on the edge area. It's gonna give me the edge lights I need. Bit too yellow, you see. But with this red added to it, I can make it more reddish orange, which is exactly what we wanted. Okay, so with that done, with the eyes painted, we can just use a green, any green. I can use, I can have moot green from GW. Moot green is a bit too strong though. I'm gonna be layering flat green from Vallejo. again, it doesn't exactly matter. You can use whatever green you want. If you want to use like GW colors, you can. Nothing is gonna stop you from that. And what I'm gonna be doing is thinning it a little bit and then just plopping it in the eyes. Having the white base coat is gonna make the green very shiny. And we got our eyes painted. Again, for tabletop, but looks pretty good. And lastly, we can do the edge lights on our weapon thing here. Like so, just to give it some color. And a few more details here and there, but I think we are done. Yeah, I think we're done. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this guide. We did everything just with layering. Nothing else, just layering. We can do the base maybe. Just quickly adding a bit more blue to our gray mix. And airbrushing it like this. Boom. It's gonna give us good contrast with the reds. And it's gonna look fairly urban, you know? Okay. Gotta clean it up a bit with some black in the recesses where the primer didn't act too well. And you can still see some of the actual dirt I used. I use real dirt to base my minis. If I don't have any bigger plans for it, I use just real dirt. It's cheaper than buying it from GW because they also use real dirt, so you know. They sell you dirt, so you shouldn't buy it for the money they ask. Okay, and that is all. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope you like this. It's a very strong red armor. It's gonna do its job on the tabletop, I believe. So yeah, I'll see you all in the next guide. And thank you so much for being part of the Patreon. I hope you like these guides. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.